Going on, everybody? It's Key Time coming back to talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves from last night. Now, one thing about last night, this is what we had been waiting to see from the Minnesota Timberwolves. We seen the Minnesota Timberwolves came out and brought the same type of intensity that they did versus the Denver Nuggets. Now, in the first quarter, I noticed that things were going in Minnesota Timberwolves' favor when they got up by 10. And then in the second quarter, they got up by 12. And then in the third quarter, they got up by 7. And then in the fourth quarter, the lead started to shrink, and it had got tied at one point at 86 in the fourth quarter. And then I'm saying to myself, I'm like, the Timberwolves, they need a couple more shots. And then all of a sudden, who steps up to the plate? Karl Anthony Towns came and made back-to-back threes with under 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and that is what really sealed the game for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now they have Game 5 back in Minnesota. I expect them to come out with the same type of intensity, but to lift their standard even more. Now with Karl Anthony Towns, he had those 2 threes and they helped out a lot. But one thing you don't know if Derek Lively II is gonna be back for Game 5. So if I'm Karl Anthony Towns, pack it in the paint. That is exactly what he needs to do. Pack it in the paint, because the Dallas Mavericks, they don't have nobody outside of Derek Lively that can even be a threat in the paint. And plus, Derek Lively is the tallest player. Well, the tallest rebounder on the Dallas Mavericks. And you don't know if he's coming back for Game 5. But all in all, it was a good series. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get back to the Minnesota Timberwolves. But first off, I'm going to talk about Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. Now, Luka Doncic, he had a good game. He had 28 points. Kyrie Irving had 16 points. Daniel Gafford had 12. PJ Washington had 10. Now, like I've been saying, Kyrie Irving, he didn't have a bad game. He really didn't. He was getting his other teammates involved, because as we all know, Kyrie Irving, he starts off as a facilitator and then finishes the game on the attack. And with the first 3 games of the series, that is what he was doing. Now, as far as for Game 5, if I am Dallas, I am going to try to win the series in Minnesota, because I do not want to come back for a Game 6 in Dallas, and then if Minnesota wins Game 6 in Dallas, then basically Minnesota have home court. They'll have Game 7 back at their place. So we already know what the stakes are. If I'm Dallas, I'm gonna look at film today. We got to get better on trying to neutralize Anthony Edwards, because Anthony Edwards last night had 29 points. So if you neutralize him, if you keep him down to about 18 to 19, more than likely you win that game. Karl Anthony Towns, he had 25 points. Rudy Gobert also pitched in 13 points. And Jaden McDaniels also had 10 points off the bench. Now, as far as the lineup concerned with the Minnesota Timberwolves, I believe they need to stay with this lineup. And only thing they need to do is just try to slow down Luka and Kyrie. But we all know that is going to be impossible, because Luka is going to get his shots. Kyrie Irving is going to get his shots. But when you get the other players on the Dallas Mavericks, when they start seeing shots go down, like Daniel Gifford, PJ Washington, Derrick Jones, And also when you have those three guys, when they have their shots going down, it's gonna be a long night. So for the Minnesota Timberwolves, they got game 5. Can Dallas close out the series in Minnesota? We will see tomorrow night. As far as who's favored, they have Minnesota favored in game 5. But they still have Dallas being favored to win the series. So can the Minnesota Timberwolves build momentum off of this game 4 victory and change this series on its head? We gonna see. Game 5 is tomorrow night, and with that is my reaction from the Western Conference Finals Game 4 last night. Please like, comment, share, subscribe. Click the notification bell to get notified of all of my reaction videos, shows, and content. And with that, remember, another thing. Thank you to all my subscribers. We have eclipsed over 100 subscribers in just this month alone. And we are still going to keep growing here at Key Time Sports. And with that, remember, the key is always on time.